This past weekend was Grim Jam at the Team Reality Gym in Grimsby. They've run Grim Jam for a few years, but they did the first style competition this year, and I was one of the judges for the competition. It was my first time judging a style competition, but I have had quite strong opinions on style comp formats and the approach to judging for a while. But I thought it'd be interesting to go over all the runs from the finals of the style run, analyse them, break them down, and talk about my approach to judging and my thought process to how I scored the runs. So I'm just going to be looking at the finals. There were 6 athletes competing. So I'm going to play all the runs from the finals now, from last place to first place. And then I'll talk a little bit about what the judging format was, and then we'll get into the breakdown of the runs.
That's right, Don. Good man, well done.
Going overhead, hey, I hope you want to stay. It'll pop like a zing. Pussy so good. Niggas get the beat off this petty like it's hot. I don't want the pussy little bitch, I get it off. Hold on.
So in the qualifier round on the Friday, there was 15 entries in total. Once all the entries have been submitted by the deadline, that's when we reviewed the runs and gave them a score and determined the top 6 to get through to the finals on Sunday. The qualifier round was a video entry format, so you just filmed a line and submitted it either through Instagram or through direct message. So it's a lot more relaxed, a lot less pressure on each athlete, and they can take as many attempts as they like at their runs before they get the one they're happy with to submit. The finals on Sunday was a traditional format, so the athletes had one opportunity to perform their run in front of the audience and the judges. The judges for this event were me, Jake Harris and Elise Bickley, and we judged each run on its overall impression, rather than each of us having like a specific category that we were judging. The way it was judged, rather than the usual score-based approach, because there wasn't that many competitors, we actually just judged it as a ranking system. So in the qualifiers, we just ranked all the videos 1 to 15, and then top 6 go through to finals, and then again in the finals, we just ranked them 1 through to 6. We each came up with our own individual rankings, and then each placement was given a certain number of points. So first place would get 15 points, second place would get 14, and so on. And Jake used that to then determine what the top 6 athletes were getting through to finals. In finals, again, we did all come up with our own individual ranking, but while we were sort of discussing everything after the competition, I think we all ended up actually agreeing on what the order for the top 6 was anyway. For the qualifier round, because it was all submitted through video, we could obviously watch the videos back as many times as we liked to come up with the ranking. In the finals, we watched it live. I gave each run a score just for like my own sake while we were going through the event, just to help me with then determining the final ranking at the end. And then we did watch a video of each run back once before finalising our rankings. I've not scripted any of these breakdowns out, so this is all going to be like off the top of my head while I'm going through each run, so it's probably going to be a little bit all over the place, but let's get into it. So obviously a bail is never a good thing to start with, but I do rate that he started his run with a side pre. I think opening with the like sort of big hitter, like spectacular moments is always a good thing in a star run. I'm not a huge fan of that forward roll to kip up to backflip for a couple of reasons. So firstly, it's all taking place on the floor, so there's no real obstacle interaction going on. But also, it doesn't progress the run at all. Like it's all taking place on the same spot. He's not gotten any closer to another obstacle or anything like that. Admittedly though, with the bail, I don't know how much of what came after is like improv to try and get back to where he wanted to be, or how much of it was pre-planned. So you can see he's clearly sort of got a bit scared on the bar there, or at least it looks to me like he got a bit scared, so he's had to take an extra swing. Looks like he probably had too much momentum actually, because you can see he slows down on that second swing. But the concept, like the lache to splat, back to grab, and then swing gainer, that's all a great concept. If he'd been able to do that without taking the extra swings, I think that would have been great. He does like a tack off this slant into the bar, which doesn't really set him up for starting the swing properly. I don't know how much of that is planned, how much was he's sort of improving a bit after the bail. But if we go back, like it's the kind of entry that would work with a float up, but when he's just going into the upstart, the tic-tac doesn't really help him at all. But yeah, definitely should have just gone for the swing gainer straight away. That would have looked way better than if he'd have to take those extra swings. A little bit of a stumble back on the swing gainer, but nothing that significant. And then personally, he should have ended it just after the palm flip. Again, don't know if maybe he had something planned for after doing the roll and just sort of gave up on it because the run wasn't going to plan. But if we're assuming that that was the planned finish point, yeah, he should have ended at the palm flip rather than doing that splat into roll. I do think as well, doing 2 wall tricks, or in this case, 3 wall tricks on the same wall, just from a composition point of view, is not the most interesting use of the course. But overall, I don't know how old he is. I know he's under 16, but it's a good run for someone's first style comp. So next up in 5th place, we've got Leighton. He was the highest placing youth competitor. I really felt like this and 4th place, which was Tom Redfern, could have gone either way. It was very difficult to decide which way around I actually needed to put them. But yeah, let's get into his run.
Going over here, I hope you understand.
So he starts with this jump and catch, which is a good place to start, but not if you're going to take an extra swing before doing the bar trick. It ruins the flow of the run and it makes for bad composition, because you could have just started on the bar and taken that jump and catch out. And then the swing gainer catch itself, I have been told that his plan was always to treat it more like a splat than an actual catching an arm jump and staying on the wall. But when you're watching the run, you're going to assume that he's trying to do an arm jump. So you're going to treat this as executed badly. And then he does this little scoot here into a wall flip. I don't know exactly what the intention out of the swing gainer catch was, if he was treating it as a splat, as what he was going to do afterwards. So it's hard to know how much of that is sort of bad composition, bad execution. But either way, like, it doesn't really connect from doing the swing gainer catch into this little scoot, into the wall flip. He's sort of ended up in the same place he was after doing the swing gainer catch anyway, but if anything, he's ended up further away from any obstacles. Not a fan of how he gets onto the bar here. He's sort of going over this wall on the left and then climbing up the wall on the right to get onto the bar. He could have just gone up here, using this wooden rail, and got into the same position just as easily. It would have been like a better composition. I think it would have flowed better. It would have made more sense.
Just a little bit, I did it off. Hold on.
The sort of circle round to ping back, I think that's great. Yeah, really nice trick to put in a run. It wasn't the best landing, but it wasn't bad either. Like, he doesn't really stumble, he just puts his hands down. But again, there is a bit of like a composition issue, because he's landing facing the bar and then he's having to just turn around on the spot to go towards his next movement. Obviously a bit of a slip up here where he puts his wrong foot on the wall first for the 180 and has to swap his feet around. That's obviously something that can be remedied either by just practicing 180s both ways, or just paying more attention to what foot you need to put down. And then I don't know if he was planning on landing in stride here. But yeah, the sort of two-footed landing out of the 180 into the J-step gainer, not the smoothest connection. If he'd done it as a stride into it, then that would have obviously looked way better. And slight under rotation on the swing gainer, like, just avoids not putting his knees down and just avoids hitting that wall in front of him as well. But otherwise, like, if he had done the stride out of the 180 into that gainer, that would have been quite a nice ending to his run. Overall, the composition, he starts out quite high difficulty wise, but then it does sort of peter off and doesn't maintain that standard of difficulty throughout, so there's a little bit of a letdown there, but otherwise it is still like a pretty solid run that he's put together. So moving on to the fourth place run, which was Tom Redfern. Like I said, this really could have gone either way between him and Leighton for which one got fourth and which one got fifth. But yeah, let's get into it. So like the previous two runs, he does start with a bail. Not a huge bail. He does manage to recover it and keep the run going pretty well. But it is still a ding for execution there. And then he goes into this running gainer, which I like, but he does over-rotate it and have to take this step back. So again, a little bit of a ding for composition, or for execution rather there. I think here, if he had let himself under-rotate the gainer, one, it would have been less of a problem for the execution. There'd be no risk of that over-rotation. But also the composition of rolling out of the gainer into this like tic-tac that he does would have been a lot smoother than trying to sort of stop the landing of the gainer and go into it. You can't really tell on the video, but the tic-tac he does, he's going a foot off the slant and then a foot off this vertical wall. Yeah, you can just about see the wall in the corner there. So quite a nice like corner tic-tac he's doing. Into the bar catch. Does the double 180 on the bar, which is a little bit better than just taking an extra swing, but it is still a bit of a ding to the composition in my eyes, or at least the flow of the run. I think both really, composition and the flow. It doesn't flow as well as if he'd just been able to go out of one swing, and from a composition point of view, it's sort of that case of if you can't do it in one swing, then come up with something else. Does the lâché arm jump, which is quite nice. It is going upwards. Doesn't quite catch it smoothly. He's very on the edge, catches on one foot, but manages to play it off. Doesn't really slow him down too much into this 180 arm jump, which again is quite big. So I enjoy the difficulty of this section here. And it's still going as well because he goes into a swing cast. Not the greatest landing on the swing cast. Like the swing gainer, I think if he'd committed to under rotating and rolling out of it rather than this like stumble that he does, it would have. To be fair, it doesn't actually slow him down that much, but it is still quite a bad landing. But yeah, a roll out of it would have looked smoother and wouldn't have been as big of a sort of ding to the execution there. And then does this Kong arm jump, which is quite nice. The climb up's a bit slow, which ruins like the pace of his run. The front flip down. Again, I think I would have preferred to see a roll out of the front flip rather than this like hand slap. But yeah, it doesn't really slow him down that much. It's not too much of a stop from the front flip into this vault box. The roll also might have gotten too close to the vault box to do anything over it. Admittedly, he does just do a speed step over it, so it's not like he needed a run up for it anyway. And then he rolls over the car to finish the run, which I think was planned. I think the driver knew that the car was going to be used. So we're now on to our third place run. Similar with Leighton and Tom. Third place, which is Corey, and second place, which was John. Really could have gone either way for me. So Corey's run was really fun to watch for me. It was less about these sort of big, spectacular flips that most people will build their style runs around, and much more based around sort of very technical, creative use of like traditional parkour movements and the course. So yeah, let's get started. So very cleanly executed toe giant to precision to start his run off, which I love. There's a little bit of a pause from the stick, so a slight ding to let the execution in terms of flow there. But it's not too bad, and it's better than if he had like stumbled or anything like that. Nice connection into the bar move. I love the 180 off the wall out of the lâché to arm jump. Again, like really creative use of the space. Really nice sort of like technical movements going on. So same with Tom, we've got this double 180 on the bar, which is a bit of a ding to both execution in terms of like the flow and the composition here. I would have liked to have seen him come up with another way to get into this lâché that he's about to do. I love this movement so much. Lâché pre, straight into the toe shoot, tack pre. Arguably the most technically difficult thing anyone did all weekend. I did knock him point down for it though, because he did do the same movement in his style run for the qualifiers. So I've had to sort of knock that points in terms of the creativity that's going on. I think there is an argument to be made that they're two separate runs and they should be judged as such. But I think you want to discourage people from repeating movements in multiple rounds of a style run. I think that sort of speaks for itself really. You don't want to see people just doing the same run at every competition. It'd be a bit boring and it would kind of ruin the sport from a competitive point of view, I think. This sequence here, so it's kind of hard to tell with the angle change, but he does put 2 feet down. Oh, actually, does he? I'm just going to double check. No, he doesn't. I did think he put 2 feet down on the wall, but it looks like he does actually only put 1 down. A little bit of a hesitation coming out of that sort of 270 from the speed step into the bar catch. Obviously he has to get his bearings a bit there, but he doesn't take any extra steps or anything. He does come down 1 foot and then the other foot into the bar catch. Again, this whole sequence was what he did in his qualifier run, so I've still knocked him down points for creativity for this section as well. Really well connected though, the lache into the speed step to plyo. In his qualifier he did do a 360 arm jump, so again it's still sort of like that continuing creative decision I've knocked him down points for, and actually choosing like an easier version of what he did as well. And then ends could have been a nice movement to end on, that sort of dive roll from the arm jump position, but he does put his foot down, so yeah, locked in points on the execution that's going on there. It's also maybe not like the most spectacular move to end on. If he'd be able to come up with something that's like a bit bigger hitting, that would have been a better ender to his run. So on to second place now, which is John Cleave. It's definitely a like more spectacular and like harder hitting run than Corey's was, which I think is ultimately like what edged it into second place. But I do think Corey's like composition and sort of creative use of the space really outshone basically everyone else, to be fair. So starting with the swing gainer pre to the bar, obviously a great high difficulty move to start with. He does, you can see here, the execution of how he connects it into the bar is not great. So he sort of heel slips off this bar here and then has to take an extra step on the floor before jumping up to the bar. So not the best execution going on in that connection there. It is also hard to know with these swing gainer pre's. I'm pretty sure the bounce off was intentional. It usually is, because it is like the safest option on these, or at least the easiest option. But I think there's 2 things you sort of have to consider here. Is if it wasn't intentional, he does need to be marked down points for execution for bouncing off the bar. Even if it was intentional, he has to be marked down for composition, because he's chosen to sort of bounce off the bar and then go back over it, as opposed to like overdoing the swing gainer and coming off the bar on this side of it instead. This is a difficult thing as well when you're sort of jumping onto a bar and doing this upstart to do any sort of swing movement, because you don't really have you've got two options. You've either got to do the whole sort of front swing, then a back swing, and then release again on the front swing, or you've got to do a float up and then cast into the lache, or whatever sort of swing movement you're doing. Both sort of slow the pace of the run down a bit, but it's not like you can do a bar trick without having to do that entry into it. But I do think you do sort of have to knock some points for composition for not coming up with something else that could have been done instead to get into this bar trick. So this pillar's a little bit in the way, so he's doing a swing, 180 turn, and then punch front flip off this wall here, which is a sick trick. You can see not the greatest execution. He does over rotate it, put his hands down and stumble out of it a bit. And then his connection here into the next part of the run, there's sort of nothing happening. He's landed and then he's just running. It almost feels like there's this part of the run and then what he's doing now, which is the second part of the run. So yeah, composition, I feel like he could have done something else to get him into this space here for what he's about to do. I'm always an advocate for running in a run is still flow, as long as it makes sense. As long as the move you've exited and the move you're going to require this run up, then there's nothing wrong with doing a run. But what he's done here, he's got this run up, but then he's just doing this like turn vault up onto the wall. It's not something that needed a run up. So yeah, I think if he maybe used this bar instead, that would have been better, or just come up with something else to get him into this space to do this arm jump that he's just done. So this is a sort of great example of what I was talking about earlier with Corey and Tom's runs. Going from the arm jump into the bar and straight away into that release looks way better than either taking an extra swing or doing the double 180. Way better sort of connection, way better pace going on in his run. And then the movement itself, the splat back off a bar, great move, high difficulty, a lot of precision sort of required in hitting that properly. Obviously the execution wasn't great, he's undershot a bit and stumbled. But it's not too bad of a landing, and he does carry it on very easily without much hesitation from it. But personally, I think he should have ended it at the splat back. I think what he's done here, there's a few things. So the tic-tac to arm jump to then immediately letting go of the wall. I didn't really touch on this in Leighton's run, I don't think, but any time that you're catching in an arm jump and then just letting go of it, and you're not either doing a climb up or doing some sort of wall trick out of the arm jump, it is bad composition. It's effectively an entirely pointless move. But also in this particular case, the difficulty of the sequence, the tic-tac to arm jump and then the palm flip, is way lower than everything else he did in his run. So from a composition point of view, it's got less interesting than if he'd just ended it after the splat back flip off the bar. So now we're on to our first place run. Not gonna lie, there's not gonna be too much to talk about here. It is basically a perfect run. I think the score I gave it as I was going was a 9. Fun fact, this entry he's about to do is only possible because Tom Redfern broke the rail that was here during practice for the speed comp. But yeah, let's get into Zach's run. So the dive over the bar catch, great opener to a run. It's a decent size. It's a spectacular looking movement, and then the transition from that into the arm jump and devil drop is an interesting use of it, and an interesting way to sort of connect it into the rest of his run. Usually with these over the bar catches, you see people take an extra swing and go into a bar trick going forwards, or maybe they go straight into a swing cast or something like this. So this is a more interesting use of the course from this trick. Great landing on the devil drop. Is able to go straight into the next movements from it. Just, you couldn't ask for better execution here, really. This is sort of essentially going to be my only negative thing about the run here. So it's gone from an inward side, and then the next trick he's done is a regular side, so it's not the most interesting choice of trick going on here. I actually would have preferred to see him just do a Kong over this low wall straight into what he's about to do on this wall, rather than adding that side flip in, because the side flip hasn't done anything for his run difficulty wise either. Like, he's already got this high level of difficulty. Adding a side flip in isn't improving on that in any way. So he goes into this castaway, which again is like pretty much spot on execution. There's only like a little sort of step back here as he goes into the pop up again to carry on his run. What I will say from a composition point of view, I'm not a fan of castaways or palm flips or anything like that mid-run, because you have this problem of you're ending up exactly where you started. You've not progressed the run at all from there. In Zach's case, because he executes it so well, he is able to go straight into the next part of his run, but it is very easy to not quite get the execution that you want, and it slows the run down a lot. So personally, I think a lot of backflip based movements work way better at the end of the run than in the middle of the run. Obviously, depending on the environment, you can make them work in the middle of a run though, but it is a lot harder.
Let's go!
So I like this entry into the toe shoot. Like, he could have just gone for a more bog standard vault coming up on sort of this side of it, but going for this like 270 turn vault kind of maneuver, more creative, more difficult, great choice of movement there. There is like very slight hesitation from the pop up into the 270 and then the toe shoot, but not that much. And most of the hesitation seems to be more around making sure he's upright and getting a lot of power for the toe shoot. And then we're doing a pretty sizable toe shoot pre. And he doesn't, he intentionally has that overshoot so that he can step straight out of it into what is going to be the final move of his run. So there's no like hesitation from that landing at all.
Let's go!
And then what a move to end on, the sort of gate splat back full, with essentially, you couldn't ask for a better landing really. It's really interesting as well, the foot he steps off with here. I don't know how much of this was planned, how much of it was just rolled with it, but he stepped left foot on this wall and then right foot on this wall. So he's having to like squeeze his left leg between his right leg and this wall as he swings up to splat off the bar. So yeah, that's like, I didn't even clock this while I was watching the run, so this didn't really contribute to the score at all, but watching it back now, that does add to that sort of technical difficulty that's going on with this movement. And yeah, like I said, you can't ask for a better landing on the final trick of the run, especially when it's such a high level movement that's happening. So yeah, well deserved first place for Zach there. Well, I hope someone got some enjoyment out of this video. because I didn't. I hated every second of making this. I'm very uncomfortable talking to a camera. But I guess let me know if you want me to fully nerd out about anything else parkour related.